Um, today as I was preparing for today's message, I was thinking about a story that I heard. There was a pastor who was sent out to start a church in Orlando, in a really bad part of Orlando, which I know a lot of us don't think of Orlando as having really bad parts, but it definitely does. It was one of those areas full of gangs and prostitution and drug dealers. So that's where he went to set up a church. And it wasn't long into his church being in existence. They did it in an old theater, like where they did plays. One of the well-known gang members and drug dealers started attending the church and sitting in the back row, and he was like, yeah, that was a little intimidating for me to have a well-known gang member, higher-level gang member, sitting in the back of my services watching me with his arms folded every Sunday. But after a few Sundays of that, the gang member came into the church office and was like, I need a job now. And he's like, sure, but why? And he's like, well, I decided I'm going to become a Christian, and God healed me of all my drug addiction and stuff. And he's like, and I realized I have all these drugs that I'm supposed to sell, but I can't live that life anymore. I'm a Christian now. He's like, I'm going to follow Jesus, so I can't sell those drugs, so I flush them all down the toilet, and now if I can't pay them back, they're going to kill me. So, that was one of those things. He came to Christ. He knew he couldn't live that life anymore, so he just went all in no matter what the cost was. And God healed him against all odds. He was one of the well-known drug dealers and gang members, the kind of person that you think probably never going to come to Jesus, and they're probably always going to live that life. They're going to either end up in prison or dead. So that was just kind of the story that was coming into my mind after I was reading and doing the stuff on what I'm about to read you, which is we're going to start in Mark 5. I believe Hunter got it on there. We were having some technical difficulties this morning, but Mark 5, we're starting in verse 1 if you have your Bibles. Otherwise, I think it's up there. Yep. All right, it says, they went across the lake to the region of Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been chained, hand and foot, but he tore his chains apart and broke the irons at his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day, among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. So I'm going to stop there. So there was a man who was completely insane. It says here that it's because he was tormented by demons. And people had tried to tie him up. They'd try to chain him up. They had strong people come and try to put shackles on him. But he always broke free, and there was nobody strong enough anymore to hold him down. So because of all the demons tormenting him, because of how insane he was, and he was just trying to escape his torment, he was crying out all the time, and he was cutting himself with stones. And, unfortunately, a lot of people who are afflicted with either demonic stuff or even mental disorders, they get to the point where they're just so frustrated, they're so tired of it, that it brings them to that point where they think the only way out is to die. So that's where this guy was. He was cast out from society. He was in a place that was unclean. People didn't want to go near him. Back then, all the tombs and stuff were an unclean area. You didn't go there. So he had no friends, no family, and he was tormented night and day. So that's where we're at with this. It's a really happy situation. Continuing on with verse 6, though, it says, when he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send him out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank and into the lake, where they drowned. So, the first thing to acknowledge is that the demon caused the man to fall on the ground and acknowledge who Jesus was. It said he worshipped Jesus. It's not exactly in the sense that we were just worshiping, but he gave him that honor of, "You are Son of God, the Most High." So even the demons, who are the enemies of God, couldn't deny his power. And even though Jesus hadn't really revealed himself at that point to be the Messiah, the demons had no choice but to acknowledge it. And they knew they were at the mercy of Jesus, because they said, don't torture us, don't send us into the abyss, have mercy on us. Which, that's a little bit crazy to think that the demons are saying, "Oh no, have mercy on us." But the next thing I noticed in that when I was reading is Jesus asked the demon's name, which is kind of weird in my book since, Jesus already knew what was going on. He knows how many hairs are on our heads and the stars in the sky, according to the Bible, but it wasn't so that Jesus could find out his name. It was because Jesus wanted to reveal the complexity of the situation. It wasn't that the guy had a demon in him and Jesus was going to cast it out like he went around doing. The demon answered that his name was Legion because there were many of them. And now a legion is, back then, it was about 4,500 to 6,000 Roman soldiers. So that's the numbers we're speaking of. It wasn't just a couple hundred demons. It wasn't just 1,000 demons. It was thousands of demons. And I don't think it's a mistake either that a military term was used instead of it just saying, like, we are 1,000 or something like that. You know, because the demons were quite literally the soldiers of the devil sent to torment people and just fight against the good things that were going on. But this should all give us pretty good confidence in God, in the fact that there was a legion of demons and they had to submit to Jesus at that point. There was no fighting or anything like that. There wasn't a great stand where Jesus had to fight him off. They came up and fell on, or they made the man fall on his feet and said, "Have mercy." Next thing too that's kind of cool is they asked Jesus permission to go into the pigs. You know, they didn't want to be sent to the abyss to their eternal punishment. And Jesus knew it wasn't time for that anyway. That's going to happen later in the future. But they had to ask permission just to go into the pigs because Jesus was in complete control over the situation. He was able to say, you can do this, you can't do this. He could have sent them wherever he wanted. But he gave them permission to go into the pigs. And then here's another thing that just demonstrates the complexity of this situation, how impressive it was that in a moment that man was healed. Was there were 2,000 pigs, and the demons were enough torment to cause 2,000 pigs to rush into the sea and drown themselves. So, if Jesus is in control with something that's that evil and that powerful, Jesus has no problem just saying, you know, come out of that man and, okay, go to the pigs. You know, that should give us a pretty good confidence. We're going to go to verse 14. We're going to finish up this little segment. It says, "Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and the countryside, and people went out to see what had happened. When they came out to see Jesus, and they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened about the demon-possessed man, and told about the pigs as well. And the people began to plead with Jesus to leave the region. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, 'Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you, and how much he has had mercy on you.' So the man went away and began to tell in Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed." So all the witnesses came out, or of that event came out, and they started telling everybody, because that's something you would tell people about, definitely. If you saw 2,000 pigs get possessed by demons and run into the water, you'd start going and telling people. So all the people that were witnesses came, and then they brought their friends, and people saw the man who, if you have somebody in your town that's going around demon-possessed and he's too strong to be held down by chains, everybody's going to know about him. So they saw that guy who'd always been that way as long as they'd known. And he was sitting there in his right mind, acting like just one of you and me, just sitting there talking calmly. And then they realized, wow, all those pigs really did die, because a herd of 2,000 pigs is a big thing. You're not just going to, ignore that fact that that's missing. So they got scared, which is a pretty valid thing. They think, who is this guy that can just cause all this to happen in the blink of an eye? It was one day everything was the way it's always been. Yeah, there was a guy that lived up in the tombs, but we just avoided it. And the next moment he's here like everybody else, but our herd of 2,000 pigs is gone because they're possessed because of Jesus, is their way of thinking. And the other thing I think too that played a little bit of the part in the fear is they realized that Jesus was divine, and they weren't godly men. They were raising pigs, which in that time was forbidden in Jewish law, so they clearly weren't following God. They were doing their own thing. And that when they encountered God, they realized that they were going to have to change things, or, they weren't serving God. And when you're encountering God and you're doing the wrong things, it's a little bit scary. And then they asked Jesus to just leave. They said, just please leave this area. We don't want you here. Which to me, that's just crazy. You see somebody that's so powerful, he can heal somebody who's always been out of their mind, insane. He can heal them in an instant, and they're like, no, we don't want any part of this. But it's because they were scared, one, that they were going to lose more of their things. They were thinking, he's already cost us 2,000 pigs. That's a great fortune. We don't want him to come here, cause any problems. We just want things to stay the way they are. Which it's kind of foolish because Jesus could have come in, he could have healed their children, he could have set everybody else free. And, if you're possessed by demons or you have a kid that's dying, your pigs aren't anything to compare to that. And Jesus time and time again healed children and healed people that were sick. So their main concern was, we don't want things to change, just go along. So, I just think in my mind, what would Jesus have done in their area if they hadn't sent him away? And then the last little part, the man asked Jesus to come with him, and Jesus is like, no, you can't come with me. Go out throughout all your family and tell them what I did to you. So he went out into the Decapolis, which is 10 Greek cities, which this is just a side note, but they would have all been Gentiles. I've heard people in the past say that Jesus never really witnessed to Gentiles very much, but he did send people out to go to Gentiles and say, look what I've done. So he obviously had some concern for that. But those people would have known about the demon-possessed man. I mean, like I said, if there's something going on like that, it's a real-life ghost story that's actually happening and you can see it. People are going to know about that. So, he was going to people and they would have no way to deny that a miracle had happened. And when he says, this guy Jesus that everybody's talking about, he's the one who set me free, that's a pretty good witnessing tool. So, and the other little thing I've read that I thought was pretty cool was, it was also Jesus showing that man that I can take care of you even if you're not with me. I can protect you from these demons even if I'm in another city. So, but what does all that mean to us? Because I want you to understand what's really going on in the story. There was a guy who nobody would even dare to go near. Similar to that gang member, people that are in the church family don't really dare to go near the gang members very often. But Jesus went to meet him. That's really primarily the main reason he went out on that ship and went to that area, was to meet that demon-possessed man. He had complete power and authority over a situation that strong people had come and tried to chain that guy, but they couldn't do it. But Jesus came in and he had complete control over everything. And then when no medicine man or no religious person could heal that man, Jesus came in an instant, said, come out of him, impure spirit. But there's another side. Those people, like I said, they could have had way more healings. They could have had Jesus come in and transform their lives, but they said, nah, we want what the world has. That's what we have already. It's fine. I don't need things to change. But I'm telling you, whatever you're going through, God is more powerful, because I know there are people in here that are dealing with things. I know there are people in here who have kids that are drug addicts, or there are people that are being tormented with mental disorders, or whatever it is, health issues. God is more powerful than that, and we just need to lay it on him. It doesn't matter if all the doctors have said there's no hope, because I've seen somebody with leukemia be healed in an instant. I've seen somebody laying on their deathbed, the doctors say it's over, but the next day they're sitting at home perfectly healthy. So, we serve a God who can calm the winds and the waves, and he can do whatever he wants. But too often we're content and we say, look, I don't need things to change. I'm going to do it my way. But I'm just encouraging you all here to put your trust in God, because it doesn't matter what you think is impossible. God showed up right there and healed somebody of 6,000 demons. So what I want to do just for this little time period is, I know there's some of you who are dealing with those things, or health issues, or whatever it is. So anybody who, either family or yourself, and nobody's going to judge you, but just want you to come up and we're going to pray for you. Even if it's not you, pray for somebody that comes up. But I'm going to open in prayer, and then I want you guys to come up if you're dealing with things or family's dealing with things, and let God come in and transform it, because we believe that God can do that. So I'm going to open in prayer, and then come up if you need prayer. Lord, we just thank you once again, because we know that you hear us and we know that you love us. Lord, we just ask you to be with us through all the difficult times in the coming week and the rest of our lives. But Lord, help us to just have the strength to be faithful and to welcome you in, even though it can be scary to think that we may lose something. But we know that there's so much more to be gained from trusting in you. And pray. Amen. All right. So feel free to fellowship a little bit longer if you want to.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Where do you think the demons went when the pigs drowned?
Hopefully they stayed down there with the pigs.
You reckon? I've often wondered that. What happened to the demons? They were so concerned about where they were going,
Well, they're still going there in the end, so I guess that's why they didn't bother to mention it. They just figure, well, in the end they're going somewhere else anyway.
You know?
You all are dismissed. If you want to stay and hang out, feel free, but